Hello everyone, Jay Whitner here for Space Headlines. We do a quick recap of what goes on in the space universe each week. Today we're going to be talking about the second week of March 2018. Our first news item is China. China is working on developing a spacecraft like the American X-37B. This is sort of a mini space shuttle that we have that launches on top of an Atlas V rocket. The Chinese version has some similarities. It's also going to have no crew, but theirs is going to be air-launched instead of on a rocket. So it's going to be deployed, launching from an aircraft, somewhat like the Stratolaunch concept. The schedule for this is that they're looking at a first flight in 2030. 12 years from now seems reasonable. So China is apparently going to join us with having a little space shuttle of their own. The NASA twins, the Kellys. You're probably familiar with the basics already. This was a one-year experiment where one twin was on the International Space Station while the other twin was on Earth, and they were comparing the measurements and the health, and the DNA and everything from the two different people. What they're finding is that 1 year in microgravity caused significant changes in gene expression for the spaceborne astronaut. And while a 6-month period may be a little early to call permanent, these changes are persisting long after the flight was concluded and may be permanent. They're saying that 7% of the genes continue to show their space adaptations 6 months after returning to Earth. We're going to get a summary paper later this year that may shed a little bit more light on this whole situation. We had something kind of exciting in the space world. A little bit of a rebellion went on. For the very first time, a company launched a satellite, actually a group of CubeSats, after being denied permission by the FCC. So this was Swarm Communications. They wanted to launch 4 CubeSats. They were going through all their paperwork to get all their launch licensing and so forth. And they were denied permission by the FCC. And they promptly booked passage on a rocket from another country. It was an Indian rocket, and launched the satellites anyhow. So obviously the FCC is very disappointed in their behavior, and it's probably going to be hard for them to get future FCC approvals for future activities. We'll have to see what consequences come from this, what happens. There's a lot of paperwork involved with launching every satellite, and I'm sure a lot of people are curious about what happens if you don't follow all the rules. So we'll see what happens to these people at Swarm Communication. The ongoing saga of Mr. Bridenstine. The news item is that members of the House Science Committee, they were upset still that the Senate hasn't taken action on his nomination to be the NASA administrator. This period, it's been over a year that we haven't had a permanent NASA administrator. This is as long as it's ever been. And the White House took their action quite a while back now in September. The Senate committee approved the nominee and sent it on to the full Senate in November, where it's been sitting now for months. The rules are he needs 50 votes in the Senate to be confirmed. The vote counters think he has 49 votes. The situation is extra complex due to the health of Senator McCain. So we don't know how this is all going to work out, but I personally would say that I wish they would go ahead and have their vote and either approve him or start the process for another candidate. It's just an unreasonable amount of time has gone by. SpaceX in the news again. They are working toward their private spaceport in Texas. They want it to be operational by the end of the year. Is this news story. I also heard that Gwen Shotwell had made remarks about the first quarter of 2019. But at any rate, approximately a year from now, this spaceport should be operational. Their plan is for this to support all their current and planned launchers. So this is going to support Falcon 9, Falcon Heavy, BFR. It's really important that Florida step up. And the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station need to become really user-friendly really fast. And they also need to build more capacity for more annual launches. 2 weeks ago, I was at the big Space Congress in Florida, and they were talking about the capacity of the Eastern Range as being roughly 45 launches a year. SpaceX alone wants to launch 30 times this year. So it's incumbent on Florida to take action and try to maintain our position as the dominant launch facility of the United States, and hopefully they will. Next, we have news from Bigelow Aerospace. Mr. Bigelow, who made his millions in hotel business here on Earth, plans to launch the very first hotel in space in 2021. You see a depiction here of what it might look like. The two big modules that you see, they're called B330, and the plan is to connect two of them to make this hotel. Bigelow has two B330s under construction right now. Each of these modules, to give you a sense of the size, is 55 feet long and 22 feet in diameter. So quite a bit of interior volume here. In prior stories, they've talked about each module being able to accommodate up to 6 people. For a hotel, you might want a little bit more space per person. So it'd probably be slightly less than 12 people, but still a very interesting facility with internal pressurized volume comparable to the International Space Station and available by 2021. Very exciting news, and congratulations to Mr. Bigelow. More news about the NASA leadership. In this period, without a permanent NASA administrator, Robert Lightfoot has been the acting administrator. He's a long-time top NASA management guy. He's been doing a commendable job from what I hear from everyone. And he says he's going to retire at the end of April. Maybe he's tired of being the acting administrator for so long. It's been 13, 14 months now that he's been doing that. What this means is as of May the 1st, the 4 top positions at NASA are going to be vacant. No permanent administrator, no permanent deputy administrator, no permanent associate administrator, no chief of staff. Now, I'm sure they will fill some of these with people who are acting in various capacities, but this is a big operation. Billions of dollars, thousands of employees, contractors. We have to take responsible action to reconstitute the NASA leadership as soon as possible. NASA's TESS satellite is the successor to Kepler. Kepler, of course, found very large numbers of exoplanets. I think about 2,500 exoplanets altogether. This new TESS satellite, TESS, by the way, stands for Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, which is quite a mouthful. I guess that's where TESS comes from. This is going to launch from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station on a Falcon 9, and they think that this particular project is going to find dozens of planets about the size of Earth. Very cool, very exciting news. And this launch is supposed to happen in late April, so keep your fingers crossed. It's going to be a good show. Air Force launch contracts, won by SpaceX and ULA, worth a combined total of $650 million, which is great news for SpaceX. ULA has been getting these military contracts forever. The payloads they're talking about here are 3 GPS satellites, 2 space situational awareness satellites, a wide field of view test bed, and a secondary payload adapter. That's the payloads they're talking about sending up on these missions. So congratulations to both firms. Orbital ATK has long been very interested in satellite servicing. They've invested their time, money in working on this. And they've come up with some different design possibilities while they've been undergoing their research. And they recently announced a modified version of their system. This is the Mission Robotic Vehicle and Mission Extension Pods. So let's set the stage first. You have an extremely valuable satellite in geosynchronous orbit. The transponders are working, it's in the right orbit, but it's running out of fuel. So very soon it's going to go from being an extremely valuable asset to space junk. The idea here is that this mission extension vehicle would rendezvous with the satellite in geosynchronous orbit. It would have a robotic arm that would attach a pod to the satellite, and this pod would provide all the maneuvering necessary in terms of fuel and engines to make sure that the satellite was in the proper orientation, the proper location. And the vehicle would carry 10 or 12 pods. This would be able to rendezvous with various satellites throughout its lifespan and increasing their lifespan. Great idea from Orbital ATK. It's a long time coming. That's it for Space Headlines, covering the second week of March 2018. Hope you enjoyed our show. Check back with us in a week, and we'll have some more stuff for you. Bye-bye.